Not yet. They usually have a budget. They can't, they don't.
You're not gonna have one next year. You got nothing to fund already.
Oh, oh, they're not, you're not adding to it.
Right, we're gonna use last year's. So I got hired at.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
You ready? We live?
Okay, so.
All right. All right, I call the Mayville City Common Council meeting order at 7 PM. Please take the roll.
Alderperson DeBaker,
Here.
Alderperson Smith,
Here,
Alderperson Schmidt,
Here.
Alderperson Levenow,
Here.
Alderperson Newman,
Here.
Alderperson Olson.
All right, do you want to stand for pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, is there any citizen comments tonight? Any citizen comments tonight? All right, seeing none, move on to item 4, presentations. Presentation and discuss regarding the City of Mayville treatment plant facility upgrades and rehabilitation. Presenters are Steve Sell and of MSA Professional Services.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
I'm Steve Sell. I'm from MSA, and I've been working with the city for the past 2 years. So I see some new faces up here. I'd like to kind of go over what the history was. We started the facility planning effort back in 2022, and then we were able to present a public hearing here. We held that we had citizen comments on, and we submitted the final facility plan to the DNR in June 2023. DNR approved that plan in August, and then we started design shortly thereafter. So we've been working on the design since last fall. We have had 3 progress meetings with the wastewater staff, and we actually came and presented at the wastewater commission meetings. We did the August meeting, and we had Kenneth point out that we should come and give a presentation to the common council here about the progress on the design thus far. So we've had a 30% design meeting back in March with Courtney and the other wastewater utility staff. We had a 60% design meeting in June. And then we just had another meeting today covering the 90% design. So we've got a short presentation. What Ken wanted us to be able to do was a lot of our drawings and a lot of the modeling that we do for the facility is actually in 3D. And we want to do is be able to show you images either from photos of the model that we have in development so that you can see kind of what new treatment plant should potentially look like in comparison to some of what you would see from the existing treatment plant in some of the buildings. So this first slide here, the cover slide, this is the aerial of your existing treatment plant site. And then what we have shown here is the model plan for the new upgrades. So you can see most of this facility in this southeastern portion looks relatively similar. What would be changing drastically in terms of what you see in the site is the administrative building would be demolished and a new one would be constructed with a garage area that would house the wastewater staff. And then be the control center that allows us to do a lot of the sequencing for the other components of this upgrade. And then because you currently do not have enough storage per DNR requirement in this single tank here, we're gonna put a new storage tank complex up here with a digester and 180 plus days of sludge storage so that you're not hauling sludge every 2 weeks. So John, if you want to move to the next slide. Sorry. Okay, so why are we doing this upgrade? We have some new faces here. This was all outlined in the facility plan. If you go back and look at that, the facility hasn't really had a major upgrade since the early 80s. So a lot of the technology you see there is becoming obsolete. It's really hard to get spare parts for this. The infrastructure is kind of at the last leg. If you've done a good job this far of making it operate for the past 40 years and still hitting compliance, but a lot of things are getting harder and harder to replace and more expensive to replace. There's some various issues with code classification in the existing building spaces. We have a lot of air spaces that aren't supposed to be electrical components inside of hazardous areas. It's very difficult to operate that way, and you're not meeting code. So there's some upgrades that we're going to do to replace and meet new codes. In the past, you've had some treatment facility overflow events. So DNR frowns upon that, and it's puts you in a higher class to get more likely to get funding because they want to see the treatment facility overflows go away. The treatment facility overflows that we've experienced have been overtopping aeration basins, so we're addressing that issue. We have an existing treatment process works, but it's not going to be able to meet the future permit limits that you would have issued to you by DNR. So we're going to be upgrading the plant so that you can treat more effectively. And then the city, like I mentioned, lacks on-site sludge storage, and that's why that new storage tank is going to be put in so that you're not hauling sludge and dependent on a hauling contractor every 2 weeks or every week. And you're allowed to store the sludge then until you're seasonally allowed to apply it. So you have at least 6 months worth of storage. Going over the key wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and I'm going to pass this over to Joe here shortly. He's going to go through each one of the specific units so that you can kind of see what each process unit looks like and what we have modeled. So we're going to replace each key wastewater treatment equipment. We're going to improve the efficiency of the aeration system and phosphorus removal system and reduce operating costs. Address critical code deficiencies, like I mentioned, for the airspace and potential hazardous locations. Replace essential utilities, so a lot of infrastructure, if it's being 40 years old, a lot of the electrical utility infrastructure all needs to be replaced, and then the controls will be upgraded as well. Provide modern monitoring, that would be what we call the SCADA control panel, and then on-site sludge management and storage, and then a new administration building because the existing one is falling apart and needs to be upgraded to provide the staff with sufficient workspace. So I'm going to pass it back over to Joe. This is another slide of the aerial. He's going to go over each one of these process units on here and talk a little bit more about the slides. So this is Mark Toronto. He's the process engineer on the project.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all. So I'm going to spend about 10 minutes talking through some of like the most important things on the upgrade. There's a lot of things going on in the treatment plant, and I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So I'm going to take you through a few places. This big building in the center here, we call this the service building. Basically, every utility that's in this building is going to get replaced as part of the project. The structure on the southeast corner, we call this aeration basins or activated sludge. This is where a majority of the treatment happens. And then the admin building, as Steve mentioned, the new one is going to be down here, and our sludge complex is going to be in the north part of the site. So here's a photo of what the service building looks like. If you're ever driving up to the plant, you'll see this sticking out. This part over here on the right side was actually original from the 32 construction. So this building has had a long and very interesting history. So a couple of the things that we're doing on the project, one of the things we'll be doing is we'll be upgrading your pumps. So there's 4 pumps in the basement right now, and basically what these do is all the wastewater that comes from your community to the treatment plant has to get pumped through the process by one of these 4 pumps. So they're sized according to what kind of flows you're experiencing. So for the average day, you might just need 1 pump. When you have a lot of rain events, you may need 2, 3, or sometimes 4. There have been instances where all 4 have been running and have not been able to keep up with flow entering the plant. And when that happens, you have an overflow event. So what we're gonna be doing is a couple things. We're gonna be replacing all 4 of the pumps with new ones that are bigger so they can process more flow. And we'll actually be adding a second leg for this pipe on top. We call this the discharge header, basically where the water is pumped by the pumps goes. Currently, right now, you have one 12-inch line that all your flow has to go through in order to get through the process, and that's kind of like a choke point. So what we're essentially going to be doing is adding a second route for that water to go, so that when you do have a high flow event happening, there is a way to push that water through the plant without causing flooding. So my notes there are what I just talked about. Another thing that we're going to be doing is adding or replacing the existing blowers. So that's these green things here. Blowers are kind of just like pumps. Rather than moving water, we're moving air. And in this case, we add air to wastewater in order to treat it. Oxygen is good for the microbes that do the biological treatment. So when they have air, they can make wastewater clean, right? These guys are from the 84 upgrade, and they have about 100 horsepower motors, and they're very loud, and I would say that they're inefficient and maybe even oversized for the application that you guys have here. So what we're going to be doing is eliminating these 4 units and replacing them with 3 blowers that are smaller in motor size, and we're also going to be providing controls to make them operate more efficiently. And what I mean by that is that right now the blowers basically run at 1 speed all the time, but we're going to be putting instrumentation in that lets the blowers say run at like 50% speed if the parameters of the wastewater say we don't need to add so much air. So these are typically like the biggest energy expense for a facility. So hopefully there's a lot of cost benefit to the city by putting a more efficient aeration system in. And what we're actually doing with these is we're taking an existing space out of the service building and turning it into a new room that will house these rather than putting them in an existing building or building a new building for them. There's a lot of various issues with the service building structurally, as you can see in some of these photos here. So this one is showing water leaking into one of the basements. We've got some floor in the upper garage that I think is just worn out over time with road salt for vehicles that are parked up there. This photo down in the middle here, this is where the grit from the grit treatment process discharged into. And it doesn't really show well on this photo, but that's basically a dumpster full of wastewater, or as I would call it, an open toilet. And it's open and close to areas that like staff are routinely working in. So Steve mentioned hazardous areas. This alone turns your entire building into what's called Class 1 Div 1, which basically by code would require any control panels, motors, conduit to be explosion proof, and you don't have any of that. So we're going to be addressing that to not only make it so that this process works better, but we're also going to be isolating it from the other things in the building so that staff don't have to be exposed to this routinely. A couple other photos here on the left. This is an electrical room. These big gray boxes are called motor control centers, or MCCs. Basically, all your motor starters for your big equipment go in big cabinets like this. This particular room has a couple issues with it. Number one, you have to have a certain foot of clearance in front of each of these. So you can realistically only have panels on one side of the wall in this case, but also, as Steve was kind of mentioning, these are from the 1980 upgrade, and you can still get parts for these. They don't make them anymore, and you're looking at like aftermarket for when you have buckets go down. And this is kind of stuff that There's gonna be new MCCs provided on the upgrades, so what we're doing is kind of comprehensively replacing everything for the stuff that's still gonna be there. And then finally, this photo here is actually a manhole out in front of the service building, and again, there's kind of hard to see here, but there's a lot of electrical conduit that runs basically from the site into the building, and the manhole frequently has water in it. So we're gonna be relocating all of this so that it's not at risk of being exposed to water. Couple other quick things. We talked about activated sludge. So this is the building in the southeast corner. Perhaps you've seen this, but this big white fiberglass dome that was put on there for some reason in the 80s, we're gonna be removing that. So this is what it looks like inside. This is all gonna be exposed to the atmosphere. And we're going to be, as I mentioned, replacing the blowers and optimizing the air use so that this process runs more efficiently. And the big one here is that what we're doing is going to hopefully allow the city to use less chemical to meet their phosphorus limits. Right now, you're adding this proprietary rare earth chemical-based product, which sounds intense, but essentially it's a clean chemical. It's just very expensive and it does a good job. But we're going to kind of give you a biological system that's not free, but it's a lot cheaper in the long term to run than to pay a vendor, however many thousands of dollars a year you guys do for chemical deliveries. And this doesn't translate well to the screen, but this is kind of what the new process will look like. There'll be 4 tanks. The piping that is faintly shown at the bottom of each tank represents the new treatment equipment that's going in. And we'll be replacing the 60-year-old walkways that are concrete with the new system that gels well with the upgrades that we're doing. Sludge handling, we talked about this. Right now, this tank here that's attached to the service building, this is where all the sludge that's generated from the process goes. So think about basically your aeration basins. You have to take part of that out and dispose of it, or else the bacteria grow uncontrollably forever. So what happens is we call that waste. And normally what would happen is it would go to this tank, it would be treated further, and then there would be a secondary step where either you take a lot of water out of it and turn it into like thick, we call it cake sludge, but it's it's like cake but not good cake, or some other treatment process afterwards that lets you dispose of it on like land. And what happens now is there's a lot of deficiencies with this digester that don't let you use it as a digester. And the consequence of that is that the city has to basically haul sludge twice a week, which is expensive. And another issue with this digester is that it's structurally falling apart. We had our structural engineers look at this. This tank has had, I think, 2 rounds at least of what's called shotcrete placed on the outside, but it's kind of like a concrete patch product. And if you're on site up close looking at this, you will see a lot of instances of buckling or what appears to be water accumulating behind it. So the long story short is that this tank is not really, we can't say that it's going to continue to do what it needs to for sludge storage for the next 20 years. So what we're going to do is build a new one. And this is kind of what the new complex will look like. So this digester here, this is the smaller tank. This is going to more or less be what you have now, but we'll give it all the features that the city needs to operate it the way that they should be doing it. And then the larger tank in the background is a sludge storage tank. So the sludge is going to get digested in here, thickened a little bit, and then it'll be pumped into this big tank where you will hopefully only have to haul it out twice a year as opposed to twice per week. And then this new building here is required for basically all the pumps and other parts to make this process work. And this part at the bottom here is just for a little pipe for where sludge trucks will connect to and pull sludge out of the tank. So there's an easy system for them to make this work with. And then finally, this is what our new administrative building is going to look like. We kind of did a detailed walkthrough of this a couple months ago. One thing I didn't mention before is that the colors you see here are not necessarily the colors that are gonna appear in reality. This is just a visual rendering from a model, so take that with a grain of salt. But as Steve kind of mentioned, there's garage space in here, there's a new lab, there's a lot of other facilities that staff needs to do their job. And the new electrical service for the plant is going to run through this building. So that will, by putting it in here and building this kind of first outside of everything else, that will allow us to do the rest of the upgrades without taking the treatment plant down, which is essential during construction. You can't stop discharging or stop treating. Do you want to talk about schedule?
Yeah, so project schedule, we kind of just went over this bidding plan with Courtney. So what are we doing right now? We're still finishing up the details on the plan and spec set. That has to be submitted to the DNR for the Clean Water Fund application, which is at the end of September 30th. So we will submit a plan and spec package to them. What we would like to do is to go out to bid right away concurrently with the DNR's review on that. And the way we would plan on doing that is put the project in the paper out for bid or in the early parts of October so that we can open up bids just before Thanksgiving and before deer season, so we get a better price on bidding from contractors. DNR review will come in sometime at the end of December or potentially earlier if they get a chance to look at the plans within 90 days to do so. Any comments or questions we can address with slight modifications to the plan and spec set during bidding. I don't anticipate, based on experience, a lot of major changes from the DNR. And then what we would do is come back to the council commission for bid approval, bid award, and notice to proceed sometime end of December, early January. Construction would then start 2025 and continue on through the end of 2027, just because there's so many different things to piece together at that site. Joe had mentioned sequencing. That's the biggest reason, probably the biggest cost for this plant, is to build it in a way that keeps you treating wastewater during the upgrade process. So admin building probably go first so that we can house all of the new electronic components and then bring them over from the old service building one at a time, take a unit off. Otherwise, there's not really any way to take your electrical system down and then keep treating your wastewater. Any questions on that schedule at all, or anything on the treatment plant upgrade and what we have shown to you today?
I have some questions.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, going back. I was a little confused about page 8. You were saying that the motor size is smaller and these are too big for what we actually need.
Yeah.
I guess I was a little stumped on that.
So the old method for wastewater treatment plant aeration was to put as much air as possible into the aeration basins. So what they used was called coarse bubble aeration. Large bubbles can be formed inside of the basin and they just hammered through. When electricity was cheap, they were just putting a ton of air into these basins and over aerating them. The new upgrade would put just the right amount of oxygen for what the treatment plant is doing. So they use a smaller bubble diffuser. It releases and dissolves oxygen into the wastewater a little bit more efficiently. So you don't need as much airflow into the basin because the diffusers are working more efficiently at putting oxygen into the water. So we can reduce the blower size and therefore the blowers are smaller.
Okay, so in the event someday if we needed something even more, are these going to be compatible to our needs? Is it going to grow with our needs, or is it going to have to be switched sometime in the future?
So the facility plan looked at projecting Mayville's growth and anything you would have coming in industrial-wise for the next 20 years. Then there's a contingency even amount on the industrial users that you already have in town. There's an additional, what's called BOD, which biological oxygen demand would be the strength of the wastewater coming from your industries in town.
What was that called again?
BOD, biological oxygen demand. It would be like a measurement of strength of the wastewater.
Okay.
So if you have industries in town, we add on a certain amount, and DNR requires you to, assuming that those industries would grow or you have another industry come in, So we projected out for the growth of Mayville for the next 20 years in the facility plan. And those blowers are sized to meet that 20-year
Okay.
growth.
My next question, this building that kind of looks like a Quonset hut, where the
No.
sludge goes.
Oh, yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Yep.
So why would it be exposed? Why don't you want to roof over it?
The original reason, or what we suspect the original reason for this basin to be covered was just for operator, just in the winter, essentially, if operators walk along to keep them inside. There's really no process reason. It's not like the wastewater needs to be covered. We would open it up to allow, one, lighting come in there, and then two, it allows us to do the upgrades in there. This has to be removed anyway to take and put in the new aeration system, the new diffusers, and do the upgrades on the walls of the tank anyway. So one of the things we mentioned was you had treatment facility overflows. This structure overflowed. So water came flowing over the top of the walls of this. So we have to raise the concrete up on here because we're gonna be increasing the pump size to get water over to this tank because of you've had sewage backups as well because you didn't have enough pump capacity to move wastewater through the plant. So if you upsize the pumps, more water is gonna be able to flow to this structure. So the walls need to be higher so that this can't also overtop again.
Okay.
That's
And then,
one of the biggest reasons the DNR would probably make you continue doing an upgrade is to prevent treatment facility overflows.
or build the walls higher.
Yes.
Who's removing the sludge now?
I think you have Badger
Badger State Waste.
Badger
And what
State.
does that cost every 2 weeks?
There's 8 trucks that come a week to the plant, so it's twice a week. We're about 210,000 a year right now.
We had done quite a in-depth analysis of this during facility planning and came and presented the wastewater commission. We kind of compared hauling rates, even if those rates were to stay the same or escalate, what would be more cost effective, building storage on site or continuing down this pathway? DNR either makes you have an agreement in place for a minimum of 5 years if you're gonna do on-site sludge hauling, or they're gonna make you put the 180 days of storage in. It was cheaper to do the 180 days of storage because then you're not dependent on somebody that can just jack their rates up on you.
I would estimate our annual hauling cost with proper storage and the ability to decant and effectively decant would be 40 to 50,000 a year rather than about 210.
And, on the next page, page 12, are we on page 12? What was that silo-looking thing used for again?
This one,
Yeah,
So that-
what is it made out of?
that is, believe it's the original structure was a brick
No, it's concrete inside,
Concrete
brick,
inside,
brick finish on
finish
the outside.
outside, and then that started falling apart. I don't know what year it started falling apart, but they shotcreted it. That shotcrete sagged, so they shotcreted it again. And if you go, it's hard to see in this photo, but if you go up there, this thing is like rippling. It's not a straight wall by any means.
This line here is a giant crack.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I saw that.
The original intent, we wanted to try and reuse this and then just put it in one storage tank for you, but as we started digging into this structure, we realized it wasn't worth salvaging a tank that's already been there for 75 years and trying to repurpose it. So we built 2 new tanks, or we're planning to build 2 new tanks. One is a digester and the other one's a storage tank. So this tank right now is serving 2 functions and it's not doing either one. What
What
you want.
materials would you use to replace that?
You want to talk about the new tanks?
We're gonna be building pre-stressed concrete tanks, which I'm no concrete expert. But essentially the way that they're going to design it, the walls will be thinner and they will last longer than if you were to do traditional concrete pouring, which is essentially set up a bunch of rebar forms and have concrete trucks come in and, have the guys
So what this allows,
vibrator for it.
what that allows you to do is have a very consistent environment when you're making the panels, for the concrete panels to all be the same. If you did a concrete pour in a tank that big, you're gonna have many different trucks, many different types of quality of concrete as they're pouring, and you could have a weak spot in the tank somewhere. where they're gonna put these pre-manufactured panels together and then tighten up the seams between them on site. It's also much a pass-through.
Octagon building or somewhat, it won't be round, it will be more square, is what you're saying?
No, it'll be circular
It
tanks.
will, okay. All right, you answered my questions. Thank you.
Anyone else?
All right,
Thank you.
well, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on, presentation and discussion regarding the City of Mabel's 2024 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, presenter Vanwell and Associates.
Is it okay if I go here?
Sure.
Well, hello all. My name is Ben Rohr with Van Wall and Associates, a planning firm, who's been assisting the city of Mayville in the development of a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, otherwise known as a park plan. The key component of the park plan is not only to provide you with an understanding of existing conditions where some deficiencies exist, and where you could prioritize opportunities for upgrades, but it also gives you, as a part of the adoption, 5 years of eligibility to pursue grants through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and national grant opportunities based off of that as well. So what we've done over the last 6 months is develop this plan. And today I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what's in the document, answer any questions you may have. And then today is sort of the culmination of this process, hoping for action on that so then it can move forward to the DNR after you all have had a chance to review it, feel comfortable with it, and take action. So if you're wondering what's a part of a park plan, what's part of a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, that includes obviously an inventory of existing conditions, establishing, the goals and strategies. It's also evaluating and analyzing what you have today, both geographically and the amount of parkland space. All of that information then leads into recommendations for potential upgrades to existing facilities, potential ways to improve the system as a whole, and opportunities where they may exist in the future for new facilities. We also provide costs with different upgrades to give you a benchmark understanding. If you'd like to pursue something, this might be how much it costs to insert into the budget, or to seek grants, or to do however you make the funding happen for those proposed projects. And then finally, there's an implementation action plan, which talks about where we're at today, how can we move forward into the future into pursuing how to make this plan come to life. So the project started back in the spring, where we had several different meetings throughout this process with the Parks and Recreation Committee, starting with a kickoff back in the spring, parks tour and existing conditions evaluation with John and his team. We had an online survey to gather input from residents as to what they would like to see for the future. We brought all of that into the development of the plan over the summer, reviewed that plan several times with the Parks and Recreation Committee, and just last week they recommended the plan for adoption before you today. So as part of that, the input that was gathered throughout this process, obviously there was several staff conversations that took place. The Parks and Recreation Committee weighed in a variety of different capacities, and then we had over 200 survey results in the online survey from participating residents. If you had a chance to look at the document, it's split up into two parts, one being the main body of the document and the other being the appendices. We removed the existing conditions, data analysis, public input that can all be found in the appendix, but we streamlined the document into 7 different chapters, starting with goals, objectives, and policies, looking at that analysis component like I talked about. Mayville provides 161 acres of park space today. That's about 31 acres per 1,000 residents. That's the metric we use in park planning terms. We dive into that a little bit deeper within a park plan to talk about active park space and talking about neighborhood and community parks. So these parks aren't constrained by like an environmental feature, or they're not a specific special use park like a senior center. They're what you would traditionally think of as, you know, the neighborhood park or the community park with a little bit more facilities. At that scale, it's about 13.4 acres per 1,000 residents. For metric benchmark purposes, 10.6 acres per 1,000 residents is the national average. So Mayville is exceeding that national average. We compared other communities within Dodge County, and again, very favorable outcome in Mayville's providing of those physical acres. And the plan calls for, you know, maintaining that standard moving forward. Additionally, if you look at the plan, Chapter 5 is really the kind of crux of the meat of the document. That's your recommendations to existing facilities and opportunities for future facilities. And as part of that, we looked at specifically at Tyler Park, it's out on the west side of the city, and looked at how we could potentially utilize more space out there with other active recreation opportunities. And then provided in Chapter 6 the costs associated with that, and Chapter 7 the implementation plan. So at a high level, plan highlights the last park plan for Mayville was done in 2006. This was done with assistance from Dodge County. As far as I could tell in reading the last plan, there was little or no public involvement, so you far exceeded that with this version of the plan. Additionally, when I mentioned that 5 years of eligibility associated with the DNR grant cycle, that plan would have expired its grant eligibility in 2011 based off of that adoption in 2006. So basically for the last 15 or so years, the city has not been eligible to pursue those grants, but with the adoption of this plan, you will be. By far throughout this process, more focus and attention was prioritized on existing parks and trails and how to upgrade those versus trying to expand into new parks or those types of facilities. But we did provide opportunities in the plan if there were a new residential development that took place, you could at least have the conversation. These are the types of things we are looking for if that were to come to fruition. We also service analysis wise, like we just talked about, parkland total acres, you guys are doing very well. In the service area, the distribution physically of those parks, most of the city of Mayville's residents are well covered in terms of park space today. We found very few of those gaps, and especially when you add in the school facilities, their locations, and the amount of amenities associated with those as well. Couple of big picture kind of highlights. The splash pad was something that was highly prioritized from public input. Maybe you've been to other communities and seen this. It's a very popular type of amenity throughout the Midwest. And so we dove into that, providing you with the ability to have a better understanding of what that would take to be able to do something like that. We also, like I mentioned, talked specifically about Tyler Park in activating the east side on the other side of the creek. On the west side of the creek, there's the ball fields and the trailhead and the concession stand. So there's a lot going on in the playground. On the east side, there's a pretty significant hill, and there's just not as much going on. And so we provided some opportunities for ways that could be activated with new amenities. Obviously, that's going to take time to come to fruition if that's what you so choose to pursue. But we provided those a better understanding of what that could look like and the opportunities that exist there. Additionally, beyond just physical parks, we look at bicycle pedestrian type facilities as well and provide opportunities for where there could be future connections. Rails to trails may be a term you're familiar with. As the railroad corridor throughout Mayville has the opportunity to become a rails to trails. If you're familiar with the Wild Goose State Trail that runs through the center of Dodge County, that used to be a rail line. There is an initiative out there to do something like this. It has been replicated. It is possible. Obviously, again, it takes time and effort, but it is an opportunity. The Riverwalk downtown, we provided some ideas on how that could be expanded or further enhanced. Additionally, we think a very key connection could be between Tyler Park and the Tag Center. Obviously, if you know those two facilities, there a lot of amenities are associated with those two locations within the city. And right now, you would have to probably physically get in your car to travel between those two places. Obviously, there is private landowners between those two properties, but if a connection could take place, multi-use trail connection, we think that would have significant enhancement to the accessibility of the park network throughout the city. And so that was one of the recommendations as well. And then last but not least, we know that like many cities and many communities, it's a struggle often to find the available resources to make these things happen. So we provided a list of various different grant opportunities and alternative funding sources that you could potentially pursue in association with implementation and collaboration opportunities. Some of these things exist today, like working with the school district or community organizations, but there's also other ideas built into the plan as to how that could come to fruition, working together in a collaborative way. So with that, I sort of summarized a 75-page document there in about 10 minutes. I hope you've had an opportunity to view it. I'm available for questions here right now and discussion, and hoping for a positive reaction in terms of potentially pursuing adoption here this evening. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, in your park inventory, did you include private parks like the soccer field and the golf course?
Yes, that is not included within the total amount that I talked about, but it is documented within the plan as part of the holistic offerings of the community right now, yes.
So they count towards the 13 acres per?
No,
So we actually have
strictly,
more.
strictly as part of this analysis, we were looking at city-owned facilities, but they are all well documented and included. So we know they are part of the community, yes.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, presentation, discussion of the 25 budget for the city of Mayville. So you guys should have this sheet in front of you. It's just an overview of the budget. In a couple weeks, we'll get your actual binders that'll be updated with the budget itself. The CIP, we're not done. We're about 50% done with the CIP, so there's more to come on that. We've had a couple of snags that we ran into on the CIP. I first want to thank City Administrator Stephanie Justman and City Treasurer Nicole Baker for all their hard work in putting this budget together and all the line items. It's a lot of work, I know, and especially because we consolidated a lot of stuff from the last year's budget. So thank you. The general fund, we're going to have the general fund will actually probably go down a little bit to 1.7 million. And that's pretty much where we got to be. We can't lower our general fund obligations too much because some of that's already accounted for. And the mill rate, or the tax rate, will be 9 cents per thousand increase for the city taxpayers. It's about 1.6% increase. So on a $250,000 home, you're looking at somewhere around $23 increase on a $250,000 home. We cut some budget items in some departments. Some departments we left alone, some of them got a little bit of increase, but at the end, we all balanced out, and that's important. Last year, they had a $154,000 deficit they budgeted for. So the books are all balanced right where they should be. So if there's any changes, we gotta make sure we balance it out again. We met our spending restraint numbers for the state of Wisconsin by this budget. So that's a positive thing, and we'd be eligible for spending restraint money for next year. Like I said, we're still working on the CIP, so. Any questions?
We didn't get spending restraint money last year?
No, they made the new rule that if you don't get it, if you don't meet your obligation to the spending restraint, you lose it for 2 years. So we didn't get it last year, we won't get it this year. All right. Anybody else? All right, well, that was my presentation. So we'll move on to presentation, the discussion of the project plan for tax increment district number 7. Phil,
He said he would make it by 7:30, so you wanna
All right,
postpone.
all right. Is there a motion to come back to item 4D?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Schmidt, second by Newman. We come back to item 4D when Phil shows up. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda changes. Is there any agenda changes? None? Consent agenda. We don't have any consent agenda items. Report of officers, all right, mayor's report. All right, hello Mayville residents and friends. I want to invite everyone to this year's Audubon Day celebration taking place September 13th to the 15th this coming weekend. This is a family-friendly event with the annual parade taking place on Sunday, the 15th. Hope to see everyone at this great event. This month has been busy with the 2025 city budget. I've met with the administrator, finance chair, city treasurer, and all the department heads on their needs for next year and putting together the capital improvement project for the next 2 years. Going into this year's budget, we need to come up with $160,000 for a new debt payment. We also needed to finance a $154,000 deficit. Both of these items were from last year's budget. We also need to account for 11% health insurance increase, 2025 raises, projects and maintenance costs. With all these increases, taxes for 2025 will need to increase at an estimate of 1.6% for 9 cents per thousand, subject to change on council approval. The future of Mayville is facing a few issues we need to address now so we can prepare a sustainable city budget in the future. We need to address the tag center, the library, the new sewer plant, and road street repairs. More will come during the budget process over the next few months. This month and weeks, I have met with developers and landowners on what is needed to grow Mayville and maintain our tax base. For example, to develop a new residential neighborhood with 10 lots will take an infrastructure of around $500,000 for water, sewer, storm water, utilities, and new street. This does not include excavation work or land purchases cost. This would add another $500,000 to the project. The site will also need a retention pond permitted through the DNR. So at the end of the day, we might have 9 lots at a cost of $1 million. That would be $110,000 or $111,000 per lot. This is not feasible, and the only way it would work is if the city buys land at an affordable price and create a tax increment district for development. The city has financial experts that we work with to come up with a reasonable plan and forecasting to make sure we are on track. More to come. School is back in session, and we need to be aware of young kids going to and from school each day so we can be safe. Welcome back to school. I enjoy serving the city of Mayville as your mayor. However, it's challenging, not always sunshine and rainbows. However, I appreciate all the residents and look forward to the weeks and months ahead. See you around town, Mayor Bell. All right. Administrative report.
Good evening. An update on the administrative functions of the city. As you know, I've worked with the mayor and with the comptroller in completing the 2025 budget, and just so that you know, we are just putting numbers in there for like transportation aid, shared revenue, because some numbers are not in yet. So this budget we are drafting and redrafting. As we get them numbers in, we'll have more of a firm understanding of the budget. Right now, so late September, October, that's when them numbers will be in, and that way you have more of a firm budget number. We met with Marsha Kreeser, Joanne Bachhuber, and Brett Helmbrecht last week, and we're continuing to prepare a work schedule and list of items that we need to go through to repair the financial reporting for the tag center so that we can work with the Bachhuber to build back Bachhuber Foundation to build back their relationship that we need for the tag center and their facility needs. I prepared for the library board, the library director's job description. so that they can adopt that. They have a new library director that will be starting in October. Drafted a cash in lieu policy for the health insurance program. Currently, the policy is under review by an attorney, and there will be come back for more discussion on that. The fire insurance inspection invoices were sent out over a month ago, and they are 59% collected to date. So whatever isn't collected will be put on as a special assessment on the taxes for that parcel. The meetings I attended at the Police and Fire Commission was canceled due to a lack of quorum. The Joint Review Board on August 21st, Plan Commission also on August 21st, CDA meeting on August 28th, Park Rec and Tag Center. I went to that meeting on September 4th, Wastewater Committee on September 3rd, and there was a special library board meeting that I attended, and they invited me in for the interview for the library director position. Projects that I'm working on is hiring a part-time employee here at City Hall to do the custodial work and housekeeping. That was sent out last week, Thursday, and internally, we are just circulating that at that time to see if any internal employees would be interested in approximately 4 hours of cleaning a week here at City Hall. I continue to complete the insurance applications and quotes for the property and liability insurance. It's quite a work in progress. Staffing updates, as I mentioned, Leslie Schultz will be the new library director, and she'll be starting on October 1st. Adam Bailey was hired as the part-time maintenance manager at the library, and library is still in the process of hiring a part-time housekeeper. Upcoming tax is I'm preparing a resolution for the wages for the common council, and that would be part of the budget process going forward. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. Any update from the Wisconsin Department of Revenue on that kerfuffle with the absence of filing and the penalty and so forth and so on?
No, that's up for action tonight for the common council, the IRS penalty, and then
Okay, but we have-
then we will protest that.
Okay, and we have taken steps so that we open notifications about missing tax filings?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
we are keeping up on that now. This is all in the process of fixing and cleaning up
Okay, I just,
what happened in the past.
all right, thank you.
Okay, I see Mr. Carson is in, so we'll go back and to item 4D. All right, Phil, you want to come up to the podium?
Certainly.
Presentation, discussion of the project plan for tax increment district number 7, presented by Phil Carson and Taylor.
I don't have enough of that. I'll leave it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Phil, this is tax increment 7 that we're gonna.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Phil Costa with Ellers, good to be with you. Seeing some familiar faces. I've been around a long time. Only to be outdone by Mr. Smith. Absolutely. But what I'd like to do is kind of walk through kind of where you are in the TID creation process for TID 7, and I'll talk through TID 7 project plan in some detail with you. I'm not going to dive into every single number, or else you'll be here all night long. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So for many of you, this will be your first time through a creation of a tax increment district. And there's a process, as you can imagine. It's run by the Department of Revenue at the state. And so as a result, there's a lot of rules and regulations tied directly to tax increment districts and the creation and process to go through. And so on August 21st, there was an organizational meeting held of the Joint Review Board, which is a representative of the school, county, technical college, the city, and then a citizen member. That group met, organized on the 21st. Also that afternoon, there was a public hearing held by Plan Commission on this tax increment district, and they adopted a resolution after the public hearing, which then brings it forward to the city council for action tonight, if you're comfortable with the project plan as it's written. And then it'll go back to the joint review board for a meeting scheduled for, and I don't have it in my calendar. I have it in my calendar on my phone over there, but I think it's October 2nd. Sound right? 5th, 2nd, around. I'll get it for you before I leave. So it'll go back to that group. So this is step 2 of the 3-step approval process to actually create a tax increment district. So if you go into the plan and you look at the executive summary on page 3, this is the majority of the detail that you need. Yet I will walk through some of the other items with you as well. This will be the 7th tax increment district for the city of Mayville, 200.32 acres. Like I said, pretty much on the east side of town, but northeast side of town. The district will be created to pay the cost of public improvements and development incentives to promote development within the city. And we have really targeted a couple of different areas for potential development, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. We have estimated project costs in here. Some are the initial projects, River Knoll and German Street, I think it is Street, right? That are the initial projects that'll be undertaken. There's a whole host of projects that are identified in the project plan that would be TID eligible, and you would have the ability, if you have the funds of the tax increment district, to take on those projects. So when we create project plans, we work with your engineer and say, what is your capital list like? And what is within a half mile of the boundaries of the district that we can say could be paid for out of the increment in the future? And I'll talk about those in a little bit as well. But it's substantial. It's about $7.3 million in project costs. Keep in mind, this is a plan and not a budget, meaning you actually are approving a plan that gives you the financial tool to finance these capital expenditures. However, every single expenditure that's listed in here still has to come in front of the city council for action. So approving it in the plan doesn't mean it's approved that you're going to do these projects. It just means it's eligible to be paid for out of the tax increment district. So that's a distinction I want to make sure you understand, that this is really a framework to be able to pay for something out of a different fund than your general fund and your water fund and sewer fund. It can come out of this fund to pay for these capital expenditures. There's some very preliminary costs that have been identified, or projects that have been identified as potential development. There's a lot of work to get to that point of whether or not you're going to actually see the development occur. When you have a development occur within a tax increment district, you are required to have a development agreement in place as well. So if one of these projects move forward and you're going to provide any type of incentive to them, then you have to have a development agreement that clearly spells out what their responsibility is, what the city's responsibility is, and more importantly, what if they don't do what they say they're going to do? What is your security provisions that you have laid out in the development agreement? So that would be a forthcoming document that would follow the project plan approval, is to make sure you have a development agreement in place. So this would be what's called a mixed use tax increment district. It's allowed to stay open for up to 20 years. And the statutes are very clear that if you have collected enough increment to pay off all your obligations, you're required statutorily to close out the tax increment district. You can't just keep it open just to collect revenue, but you have to have projects that you have to undertake to keep it open. So it's allowed to stay open up to 20 years. That's the maximum time frame. So if you go to page 7 of the project plan that I provided to you, you can see the boundary of the tax increment district, which is the yellow line. You'll see the blue line is the actual municipal boundaries, but the yellow line is the actual tax increment district. Now to the north, River Knoll Industrial Park, that was a tax increment district years past. That district closed out. Now the attempt here is to add that area back in. You have a lot of vacant parcels that are still out there. You have unfinished infrastructure in this area as well that you would have the ability to pay for out of this new tax increment district. So that's the area. And then heading south and east, there are some open areas that have the potential for development in the future. If you have a willing property seller and developer, you could look at possibly some residential development occurring in these areas. Heading south along the golf course is an area that has the potential for some residential development as well. So we've incorporated areas that have some actual potential development that are at least some initial discussion points with them. And then other areas that in the future have the potential to develop as well, along with the areas that kind of connect. So when you create a tax increment district, you have to have the boundaries be contiguous. We can't just pick parcels here and there. They have to connect. And that's why you see this kind of winding map that runs through the city to pick up these different areas that have the potential for development. So we didn't just draw a boundary that was willy-nilly. We actually were looking at parcels that have the ability to actually develop over time. So that's the parcel list that is identified, or the boundary map. The parcel list is the fold-out page on page number 10. And then we are required to list out every parcel that's located within the tax increment district. And you can see that we are about little over 200 acres of land, including all the parcels that have been identified. The current valuation of all the parcels is $25 million, actually 23.8 million. So again, a distinction that you need to understand when you create a district. The taxes collected on the first $23+ million is what's called the base value. The base value is the value of all the parcels when you create the district. The taxes collected on all those parcels for the first 23 million, the base value, get distributed to all the taxing bodies. Okay, so all the existing valuations and all the parcels that are out there right now, the taxes collected on that will go to the county, school, technical college, and the city, just like any other property in the city. As development occurs out there above that $23 million, that's what's called increment. Increment is growth that happens within the tax increment district from new development. The increment is what is retained by the city, and you use that money to reinvest in to pay for the project costs we talked about earlier, the infrastructure, River Knoll Drive, and all these different projects. So the new development pays for itself within the tax increment district. That's the theory behind the use of tax increment financing, is that growth will fuel revenue, which will then be used to pay for the projects that are listed in the project plan. Okay, everybody follow that? The important part there is that the other taxing bodies will collect on what is there today. And they'll, for the life of the district, they'll receive that money. Page number, or section 5 of the next page just shows that you have the capacity to take on and create a new tax increment district. There's all kinds of regulations tied around tax increment districts. One of them is what's called the 12% test, and that's just if you have more than 12% of the value of the community within tax increment districts, they're called tipped up, meaning you don't have the ability to create new districts. With this, you're at about 6%. So you're about half of that number at this time. If you go to page number 17, top of that page, again, we're working with your engineering firm. Don provided us with a list of potential projects that fall outside the boundaries of the tax increment district, but within a half mile. And that's a distinction, again, that's allowed under the statute, that you can pay for projects as long as you're within a half mile and they are approved through this process. So the streets, you can see here that they've listed that a portion of the projects could be paid for. Catherine Street, Mary Street, Allen Street, River Drive, Phase 1 and Phase 2. So those projects could, if you have funds in your TIF, be paid for out of the fund as opposed to, again, the general fund paying for that and being put on all the taxpayers. So that's, again, the power of the tax increment district allows you that ability to be able to pay for some of those projects within a half mile of the overall boundary. On page 19 is a list of all the projects, very small print. I can't see it very well. Very small print. And what it is identifying all the project costs that have been identified in the project plan and the location of where they are. The yellow boundary is the actual boundary of the tax increment district. The blue shading is that half mile radius. And you can see that all the projects that have been identified, including all the projects I just read off, are all within that half mile radius. And all are included as eligible projects that could be paid out of this fund, including the initial projects around River Knoll Industrial Park. Those are kind of the initial projects that have been identified. So those are the list of projects. The nice thing about a tax increment district is it's not a static document. You can actually amend the project plan boundaries up to 4 times. And you can amend the projects as often as you want to go through this process to see people like me to walk through this. So it is a very flexible plan. So in a year or two, you also have something come up, a project that's in or around the tax increment district that was not included. You have the ability to go in and actually amend the boundaries or the projects and bring them into the tax increment district. So it's not a static document, one-time shot. It's flexible. You have the ability to amend it in the future. The list of project costs and the dollar amounts are found in section number 8. If you flip the page, section number 8, you'll see where all the projects have been identified, very preliminary estimates that were provided by your engineer again, to identify the different project costs over time. Now, we're not showing that there's going to be enough increment, new taxes to pay for all of this. So this is going to be kind of piecemeal over time. What can you take on for capital expenditures and make sure that you have enough increment, new taxes in this area to be able to pay for? That's kind of the trick here, is to make sure that you don't get too far ahead of development and then you run into the red in the tax increment district. Your goal is to make sure that you always have some positive fund balance in your tax increment district. And to do that, we make a lot of assumptions. So you go to page 24. Some of the development assumptions that have been identified here are listed. This was in collaboration working with the mayor, River Knoll Development, just kind of building out some of the vacant sites out in that area. There is a potential project right away that is kind of triggering this tax increment district. The golf course area, for a lack of a better term, would be residential, and there is some, at least very preliminary discussions about what could occur out there for new residences in the city. And then there's a lot of other area in this tax increment district that could develop over time. We've just plugged in some figures, we're going to collect some additional increment. So the assumptions that we use, not universally, but pretty close, are that we don't want to assume that too much increment, because in doing so, if we get aggressive on the increment, you could end up in a situation where you think you can take on more projects than you actually can in this fund. So 2 assumptions that have constantly been changing over time. One is tax rate, and the other is just appreciation of property. Everybody's experienced it. Throughout the state, we've seen property values increase substantially over the last 2 to 3 years. We at Ellers don't feel like that's necessarily going to continue at the level it has. It's got to level out at some point. And so what we're using is a 1% appreciation factor. Last year, you were about, I think, 8 to 9% when you look at the total assessment. We're using 1%, just to be a little more cautious on the assumptions that we're making for development. And also, we are showing a continual decline in the mill rate. Now, that's been happening substantially for all municipalities in the state. We've seen some communities that have dropped from their equalized tax rate has dropped as much as $5, $6 per thousand over the last 2 to 3 years. We do show a continuing decline a little bit, not as much as it has in the past. And that's really a reflection of growth happening in a community. You're living under levy limits. You can only increase your levy by net new construction. And the result of that ultimately is that your tax rate drops. And that's what's been happening statewide in every community that we work in all over the state. And so here too, at one point when I was coming up here many years ago, your tax rate, equalized tax rate was probably $25, $26 a thousand. Right now you're at $16.67. So you've dropped $7 to $8 per thousand tax rate as a result of your property appreciating value. Okay, so we're kind of back to square, if you will, as a result of those two assumptions. So from our assumptions, what we try to be as conservative, continuing declining tax rate, small amount, and a much less robust, if you will, growth factor of 1% of property growing. So those are some of the assumptions we make in this overall cash flow. We have to answer a number of other questions, and you're starting on page 28. We're not annexing any property. We did consider that to the north. At one point, we talked about possibly, I don't think it would have been an annexation, it would have been a detachment, thank you. Detachment, but that could be in the future if you want to do an amendment. Property devoted to retail, right now, very minimal here. This is, I think could be mostly industrial and or residential, but there could be a little bit of commercial, like the retail like this developed in here. A lot we don't see changing. You'll have some changes to zoning if development occurs. That may be ag land now that could be converted to residential. We're not relocating any businesses and or individuals as part of this plan. So those are the things that we have to answer as part of this as well. So that's me talking a lot. Questions that you have at all, I'd be happy to answer. I know the mayor's been part of this, Stephanie's been part of this as well. Be happy to answer any questions you have in regards to the process, timing, assumptions used, etc.
Can you just answer why we put the golf course land in there? I had a question that people were concerned that we were developing that golf course land.
That's the contingent, that's the contingency.
That's contiguous land, but just to clarify, that's why that was put in there. So that was contiguous with the residential development that we're hoping to have right along that.
Along it. There's in the plan, you'll see there's nothing, we're not touching the golf course. There's no cost associated, no development assumption, there's nothing tied to the golf course at all in the plan. You're exactly right. It was just to make sure we had boundaries contiguous.
Right. I was gonna ask that question, but same resident asked me, and I said, no, it's the only way we can get to the property along the hill there. The other thing is just because the mill rate has gone down drastically everywhere, doesn't mean people's taxes have gone down.
Correct.
The mill rate is the multiplier that gets you, your taxes have probably gone up a little bit, depending on, but the mill rate to determine how much of your property value how much your tax is determined. So that's kind of, some people get the wrong idea about that. The other thing is capturing the increment. That's a little, we aren't recapturing any increment, the stabilized value, the starting value. Everything that your home or your property goes up is now capped, if it's within this new TID, is part of the TID income, is part of the increment. And it doesn't affect any residential, it might affect the golf course a little bit on that additional property there, but it would affect the recycled, and you and I have been going around with River Knoll forever, but now that they're back in a TID, so anything that starting value, anything that they grow just because of, they've got neighbors now, and now they have, their property's more valuable, any of that growth doesn't come to offset the city's tax collection, it goes to fund the TID.
That's correct.
So, but there isn't a lot of that, there's only just the River Knoll, so
Primarily the value, most of the value is
Right.
River Knoll,
And,
that's correct.
I hope it works out better this time than it did the last 21 years for when that happened the first time, but
But we need money.
in the end.
Right.
Took us, yeah,
Took a
but
while.
it was tough. It was tough though, yes. All right,
All right, anybody else? All right, Phil, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, back to item number 9, clerk's report.
The city clerk's report is deferred to the October meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Treasury report, July 2024 monthly check registry and approval of the bills. You're up for the vote.
So, as you know, again, we've been busy, working the budget and we've been combining the account numbers, which will create, for cleaner accounting and less errors. The accounts payable for the month of July were $443,434. If you look after, does anyone have any questions on the accounts payable before I move forward? Okay. After the accounts payable, and after the revenues compared to budget, I've attached the credit and debits, automatic check withdrawals, journal entries that are made. As you see in July, we received our yearly, shared revenues, exempt computer aid, cable TV, fire insurance, or 2% tax dues, state and other highway aid payments, and we will receive another payment for the transportation aid in October, that's quarterly. After that, you'll see our regular debits that are taken out, and that's our insurance, IRS, state withholding, our monthly WRS payment, et cetera. Are there any questions on those?
Do you see any departments that are not in line with their budget year to date? Anything that pops out at you or no?
There is in the city hall budget and administration. So I am meeting next week with the comptroller and the clerk to possibly bring forward a budget amendment for them too.
Okay, thanks.
And then, payroll was $195,570 for the month. And since I've been so busy on budget, I guess that's all I really have to say, but this week I will be attending the Civic Symposium. It's for our software, Cassell. It's our yearly conference, and I learned about new product releases and discover how to fully utilize our Cassell. That's all I got.
All right, is there a motion to pay the bills?
Make a motion.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Smith, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, item B, controller treasurer report. Is that all part of it?
That was all.
All right, thanks. Item 11, report of committees, commissions, and boards. Wastewater Commission, next meeting date is October 1st, 2024 at 6 p.m. Library, next meeting date September 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Public Works Committee, next meeting date September 23rd at 6 p.m. Personnel Committee, next meeting date September 23rd at 6 p.m. Public Safety, next meeting date September 23rd at 6 p.m. Finance Committee, September 23rd at 6 p.m. Park and Rec Tag Center Commission, next meeting date October 2nd, 2024 at 1 p.m. Planning Commission, next meeting date September 25th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Community Development Authority, next meeting date September 25th, 2024 at 5 p.m. All right, old business. Ordinance 1140-2024, an ordinance to repeal and replace section 105-2 and 105-3, and to grade section 105-4 city administrator position of the municipal code of the city of Mayville. You should have that in your packet. It's pretty long, isn't it, Tom? To read the whole thing. Yeah. All right, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by DeBaker. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, discuss the possible action, clarification of which scheduled meeting should be streamed on YouTube and archived in the city records. This was discussed, I think, at personnel. So do we come up to a conclusion on which meetings we want to stream and not stream? And
I wanted to watch a meeting the other night. I was kind of disappointed it wasn't on there. It was a wastewater meeting.
If we couldn't get it to work.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Oh, was that it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And I said, obviously, we don't have to do that.
that's why we're having the discussion. Because if we were just gonna do the council meetings and the committee meetings, we wouldn't be streaming the other meetings, because there's a cost associated with it. We can't just broadcast it.
You can't.
No, an ordinary person can broadcast it, but the city can't, because then we have to archive it.
All right. Oh, that shoots my idea out the window then.
Oh, we are archiving them now.
We're not.
We're not.
Or not.
So what we need to do is,
So YouTube.
what we need to do is tape them. Audio tape or obviously digital, and hold it for 90 days, right? And that's it. Then you can go, you can erase them.
So the
There's not too
YouTube
much.
archive meetings won't be, YouTube, you cannot use YouTube to archive your meetings. It has
Okay,
to be on your network.
All the meetings that are archived on there now will disappear?
No, they'll stay on
No,
there.
they will stay on there. What would happen is you'd have file storage, a
Okay.
software, and there, you would download them into your file storage to be archived for them 90 days. So
So we're gonna have,
depending on which meetings you would like to have archived will depend on the cost for that file storage that we will be purchasing.
Did you get a cost on that yet?
No, I did not,
Okay.
but it is not cheap. Police department can vouch that because they have to save theirs, video and from their squads on, storage network. So it's expensive. And it's more expensive the more you have to store, because they take up a lot of space when you're archiving them. I know it's only for 90 days, but
What do you think, Stephanie? Just, council meetings? What do you think?
I would say your committees and your council, that's where your elected officials are. They signed up for it, and you are responsible to your constituents. When it gets into your other committees and stuff, it's more of resident appointments, and sometimes they don't feel as comfortable being recorded. It's not a requirement. So that's the way I look at it, but it is ultimately up to your decision.
what happens with the marathon budget meetings we ordinarily have when we're trying to clear off the parking lot and everything else? Are all of those too?
Yeah, that's part of the council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are committees of the whole, I guess.
So I make a motion that we broadcast or use YouTube on common council meetings, committee meetings, and then special council meetings. That would be it.
You know, let me ask you a question.
And archive?
Correct. Audio,
Okay.
digital audio.
Mayor, what do you think of the planning commission? I'm not on it anymore.
Let's get a second on Mr. Newman's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, second by the Baker. Discussion, planning commission?
Yeah. How important is that? I mean, a lot of stuff happens there that everybody seems to be in the dark about, even some of the members of the planning commission.
Well,
I'm asking you, as you're the president of the planning.
right,
commission, so
well, the chairman, right, as long as, same with the CDA, well, I think that, it would be nice to broadcast all of our meetings, right? But if we can't necessarily do it or afford it, I would say that we should just stick with the elected officials' meetings and we'll take it from there.
And citizens can come in and broadcast live on YouTube if they want to come in their meeting
Right.
and shoot your video.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, all's in favor? Want to read back his motion, just so we're clear, Mr. Newman?
The motion was to archive and to record common council meetings, the committee meetings, committee of the whole meetings, and special council meetings. Motion by Ken Newman and second by Anthony D. Baker.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, new business. Approved minutes of August 12th, 2024 common council meeting. Is there a motion? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Levino, second by Newman. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consideration of possible action on a resolution creating tax increment district number 7, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. to
Motion by Smith,
Second.
second by Levino. Any discussion? I think Phil did a good job explaining, so I appreciate your time, Phil.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take the roll on this one, I guess. What we're doing.
Alderman DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderman Smith.
Aye.
Alderman Schmidt.
Aye.
Alderman Levino.
Aye.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Discuss with possible action, First Amendment to TID number 6, development agreement with Dayton One LLC. This was a new, I guess, addendum to the agreement that we're creating. It's been in the works for a couple of times now. I don't know. Do you guys see it? Or you want Tom to explain it? Maybe Tom, you might come here and just explain it a little bit. They're gonna be changing the site plan and creating some more buildings, so go ahead.
Tom Beatty, developer there. By the way, we've been working on it like 4 years, but it started during COVID. This is the first time I've been in the same room with Phil, and we've had a dozen meetings.
Right.
So things keep getting strange. The project, the footprints of the buildings are exactly the same as was approved by the planning committee. Since we built one, we have figured out how to get an additional unit. The requirements called for 18 units. Now we're gonna have 2 buildings of 19 units. Per our agreement, we have to bring that back to the planning committee. We plan to do that later this month. The adjustment to the TIF agreement, the amendment, is driven by the cost. When we put that deal together 4.5, 5 years ago, things were a lot cheaper. They're a lot more now. The city's gonna realize a lot more revenue, but our costs on the site construction have gone up as well. Grading, piping, all of that. So we've asked for an adjustment in the percent returns. What that does is over the next 16 years, it gives us a little bit larger refund when we pay our taxes. Because remember, the city hasn't put any money into this. This is at our risk. We just get refunded a percentage of our real estate taxes. That little bit helps us cover our additional costs, and it helps the city over the life of the TID return, I think, $200,000 or $300,000 more than was expected. So it's kind of a win-win because rents have gone up, costs have gone up, And it's just getting it all caught up is really what the amendment is for.
And this has been reviewed by our attorney. You didn't see the issue with it, right, Jeff?
Correct.
All right.
And Phil, you agree with that?
Yeah, we updated numbers based upon what they had provided, and one of the exhibits is our numbers, yeah.
Okay.
We're comfortable with it.
And if I can add, the taxes, the property's been revalued based on the construction that we did before the end of '23. And so those numbers are now based on an actual appraisal by the city's appraiser, and the tax values are what he's provided. It's not us guessing, it's his actual numbers.
Right.
Did that go up or down?
It went up because of the value of the building has gone up, because the rents have gone up.
All right, we get a motion on this yet?
I'll make a motion to,
No, we got a motion already,
oh, you do?
right? Oh, okay, motion. Smith makes motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schmidt, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
All right,
Thank
night.
you.
Discuss with possible action facade grant reimbursement for, right, that's not the one. Discuss on preliminary resolution for special assessments for the property located at 250 Horicon Street in the city of Mayville, parcel number 251-1216-2242-006.
Little history.
This is TIF number 5, and the owner at the old Shopville building has failed to pay their development agreement. So by passing this resolution, this will,
No, we're just up for discussion. This is a preliminary resolution.
okay,
And I'll come back next month for the final resolution. This is the process that you have to take to use this. Instead of them paying it as part of their taxes, it now has to be done through a special special assessment. So this is the process to put this on the tax bill because of the value of the building going down upon the sale.
so the history is that when we put the Shopville building up, it was supposed to be valued at 2.6 million. And the developer agreement said it didn't come in at 2.6, that the owner of the property had to make up the difference because we gave them $600,000 to put up the building. And that was gonna pay for the TIF district. And so when the building was sold to the new owner,
They had a pilot agreement that,
so the developer agreement carried forward to the new owner, and they don't feel they need to pay the extra money. So that's why it's here tonight, on the recommendation of our attorney.
Okay, I still not have seen that purchase in black and white. Does it state on there that they would be responsible for that? I have not seen it yet.
We won't see it because it's all between two private individuals. So the developer agreement was with the original landowner.
And that goes with the
and it
property.
goes with the property, right? So this is on the attorney's recommendation, like I said, he already reviewed everything, and this is his recommendation, the process that we need to go forward.
I'll make a motion.
I think it's just for discussion.
Just, it'll come back for motion next month.
Any other discussion?
How much do they owe?
Roughly,
It's on the third page of the resolution. It's for January 1, 2021, 10,637. January 1 of 2022, 28,317. And January 1 of 2023 is 29,183.
it's like 63,000 something. Otherwise, if we don't get the increment, they would be, will be deficient in the TID, and it won't be able to close with a positive balance.
right, and the previous owner, Schmidt, agreed to a pilot agreement,
Right.
and it was transferable to supposedly the new owner.
So we're introducing this tonight, and then after tonight, a letter will be drafted and sent to the property owner.
All right, any more discussion? All right, so this will be coming back to council then. All right, discuss with possible action facade grant reimbursement for Link Martial Arts LLC located at 7 South Main Street. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Newman, second by Levino. Discussion, so the CDA approved the grant, and now it's just coming back for final adoption.
Looks great.
All right. Any other discussion? Take the roll.
Alderperson DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderperson Smith.
Aye.
Alderperson Schmidt.
Aye.
Alderperson Levenow.
Aye.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Discuss with possible action, payment and response to the IRS penalty notice number 792 CG dated July 29, 2024. This is what Mr. Smith was talking about before.
And there has been no, you were hoping for some kind of immediate response, but it's going to take a while for them to.
I haven't sent anything yet. I have to have it
Oh.
approved by council.
Okay.
Yeah, we were
It just came out of committee with a
Okay.
positive.
The only thing that we did is we did send it to insurance company right away. The insurance company preliminary looked at it, doesn't think it's going to be covered, but they're going to proceed.
Okay, all right.
Because it's not really damage,
Will anything be covered?
not with insurance. But there is a chance that we can protest.
We think, we haven't got an official response back.
I-
Any idea that they share the blame because they're so understaffed over there?
It might. We're gonna work on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they are definitely to blame for it. It's taken this long for them to even.
All right.
Well, other than this boo-boo, and there were other boo-boos, is the insurance company gonna pay for anything? You know,
What I know of now, what I had the initial discussion with them, this is not really damages. Insurance will pay for damages. This was an error in part that we did not file them correctly. So
We said there was an errors and omission policy, and they don't believe it was covered under the errors and omission. So that's where that's at. So to answer your question, no. We're probably not gonna get them back.
I myself would like to see somebody getting sued for not taking care of this stuff. I really would. And we need a backup plan. I just makes me sick what happened.
Well, I think it makes us all sick, but the bottom line is, we're a little off topic. We're discussing with possible action the payment of IRS penalty notice. So we can give the administrator some guidance on
All right,
filing.
and you thought it'd be best to pay them and then try to get it back? All right, I don't know.
I'll make a motion to.
All right, motion by Smith, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by DeBaker. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna oppose.
All right,
I'm afraid we'll save our money, it'd take
All right.
forever to get it back.
so we make the correction that it's a 5-1 with Alderman Olson abstaining or
No.
voting no. All right, discuss with possible action ambulance contract renewal and rates for 25 and 26 and 27. All right, Christine.
For many of you that have been here, this has been the trajectory we have been on. The 10% increase was a large ask when we first started our contracts, but it was something that we talked to them right up front. We needed to get that to a number that would be acceptable to their budgets and yet keep us sustainable for the city with excellent ambulance services. And so I would like to see us continue with that. I mean, 10% per year for each contract continues to get us, I think, good support. We do, like I've mentioned several times too, we have had the conversations when things change for the city of Mayville, when this becomes a full-time ambulance service. And it's not if it'll happen, it'll be when the needs are greater, that those talks will be a little bit different. So there are clauses in the contract that if we need to come back and to make those changes due to the needs on either side of us or larger service areas, that would be a conversation. And of course, you guys have complete control of approving that sort of thing, and those would be very different discussions. But for the time being, I think the 10% per year increment serves us well and continues to serve their communities well. That same, I wouldn't recommend the same agreement if we take on new territory, like when we had the conversation with Eustisburg, we charged them differently because they were not in this partnership with us for all of this time. So my recommendation is at the 10%. I hope that's what you'll go with. I think that's good for our neighbors and good for us.
All right, thank you.
I was at the meeting, I agree, and I'll make a motion to.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Smith, second by Newman. Any more discussion? All right, take the roll on this too.
Alderperson DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderperson Smith.
Aye.
Alderperson Schmidt.
Aye.
Alderperson Lewino.
Aye.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Item 13H, discuss with possible action approval of the flagpole holiday tree in Foster Park. A little background on this. This was, went to the CDA and they approved it. The flagpole was fundraised for Roundup down at the Piggly Wiggly. So they raised enough money and they thought it would be good to put the flagpole down at Foster Park, kind of in the middle of the limestone school for holiday time. It's a flagpole that can be taken down too during the season, so it's just up seasonal. That's the background. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Olson, second by Schmidt. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss with possible action implementing Parks Department tree donation program. You guys just want to say a couple words about the program?
So what it is, it's pretty much like an in memory of donations. So like when the ash borer came and killed a bunch of trees in our parks, we got this idea from Economlock to kind of spruce up our parks again and bring fresh trees in and get younger trees back into the park. And instead of like us paying for it, we do a donation to where someone come in and say, I want to buy this tree for so-and-so. So we'll put that on our city website, who bought it, for whom, or in memory of, or what event. And then we would tell them where to plant, or where we'd plant it, and we'd give them like 3 trees based on what the DNR prefers we need in this town. And we'd give them 3, and we'd work with a company and buy a tree and then plant it for them. And then if they wanted to buy a little plaque for it, they could put the plaque in front of that tree so they know what tree is theirs. And
This
for what.
could kind of coincide with the fall season when we do the plantings in fall too, with the homeowners.
Yep.
Okay.
And also a lot of the funeral homes do that. I bought 5 trees already and not one of them are in Mayville.
Yep, and if this gets passed, then Council said they'll put this on their website immediately for Mayville citizens.
Awesome.
So.
All right, this already went to the park board, right? All right. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Olson,
Second.
second by Newman. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss with possible action extending the 24/7 access to the tag center to 14 to 18-year-olds with a legal guardian. All right, so you want to say a couple things about this too?
Yeah, so as of right now, everybody that knows or doesn't know, Take Center has regular hours, operating hours, 4:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Then weekends are a little bit shorter. Saturday being 7:30 to 4:30 till 4, and Sunday being noon till 4. So right now we have a 24/7 access to parts of the building. It's been on since the new addition that was there. Anybody right now that is 18 years old, any member there, which is a 3-month, 6-month, or 1-year membership, 6-month, 1-year membership, you can get this 24/7 access. Fob, you just go in by yourself, no supervision, nothing like that. You're there. Other than the camera system, you're there. So it was brought up at one of our park board meetings about possibly allowing 14 to 18-year-olds to also access to 24/7 with a parent, with a adult. There would have to be something drawn up. I did contact, just going to the very beginning, I did contact our insurance company, and I think that this all went out to everybody, per what it said there is, the underwriter and EMC reviewed your question, provided the following response. My concern would be for less than 18-year-olds to be in the pool or fitness center without a staff member present, as they are more at risk for injury or misuse of equipment. If you go down this route, I would make sure you have appropriate waiver and hold segregation and hold harmless provision in place by contract to minimize the city's liability. A lawyer would be a good step to develop this. City's legal counsel could help the drafting of this. I didn't personally contact our attorney. I wanted to see where it was going. A little background, it has been brought up before, has not passed to this level. I did some access out there for other fitness centers, locally and throughout the state. It's very hard to find anyone out there, unless you know one that I haven't seen, but it's very hard to find one out there that they do go underneath 18 years old. Anytime Fitness, Horicon Fitness, they're 18 years old for their access. YMCA's that do have 24-hour fitness or access. Oshkosh Sheboygan, they're at 19 years old and older. The only one I found going through was called a Western Wisconsin Health Fitness, and they allowed 16-year-olds with a consent form. So that's kind of where it is at right now. One of the things that we take serious out there is the 24/7 access, because when you're in there working out, whether it's you, your wife, your daughter, your son that's over 18, there is no supervision out there. So we make sure of who's in there, that they don't have any violations at the take center. We make sure we know who's in there at all times, just because there is no supervision out there. So it was brought up that maybe we want to start looking at letting younger people in there at this time. And it can go any which way you want. So if we would have something drawn up, which would have to be done by an attorney, it would be that you would let them in there only with an adult, parent, anything like that. You can't bring anybody else's kid in there, anybody else's child in there. It would be your own. It couldn't even be an older sibling that could bring somebody in there. So that part has been brought up, but it just depends upon, right now we have a few instances every year that happen where they leave somebody else in there, something happens after hours, but it's addressed right now really easily with the security system out there. So I guess, it was brought to the park board and they pushed it on to the council for review or discussion. If it's something that we want to proceed and have an attorney write up something, like I said, it's been brought up. Gene Frings was on the park board at the time. He voted against it, and then I can't remember, somebody else that voted against it. He said it's been brought up to the council a few times and never made it past this level, where it's at right now.
All right, so that's why it's on the agenda, to see if the council has an appetite to pursue this further with legal counsel, or should we not?
Yeah.
Are you getting a lot of requests from people that want to bring?
No, so that was brought up, one of our park board members, that somebody brought it up to their attention. We do have, it's the same people that always use the 24/7. It's, it's always the 24/7 was put in there for somebody that weekends want to work out, or works third shift, or something like that, has odd hours that they, just can't get in there and they're sleeping, and they want to be able to work or make it, accessible to them like that. It doesn't matter either way, whichever way you want to go with it. I'm torn both ways, because I'm trying to think of new ideas out there. I haven't had a lot of people come up to me, straight up with you. I haven't had it was brought this way, and it was brought up, and then talking to a few people, it's hard to say.
All right, anybody else?
So there hasn't been a large request?
No, it's just that from the time that was brought up, I've never had another person request it. Like I said, as far as the liability portion of it, looking at the other facilities throughout, even like your Anytime Fitness, your any of those fitness centers like that, if we would put something in there, we'd be one of very, very few that have this 24/7 access for anybody under it. Not saying that you can't be the one to start it or do it or make it like that, but looking with the insurance we got from the insurance thing, we would have to carry something else for a policy out there. For minimum, city's liability, so.
Okay, well, Mr. DeBaker, what's your thoughts? Yes or no?
No, I don't think it's too much of a liability.
What about you, Mr. Smith?
I agree.
What about Mr. Schmidt?
No, I don't like the idea.
What about you, Mr. Levin?
It's not a demand for it, pass on.
Mr. Newman?
I personally know the people that made the complaints, so I'm gonna abstain.
And Mrs. Olson?
No.
Well, there you have it, John. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, appreciate it.
All right, resolution 5937-2024 established the 2024 fee schedule for the city of Mayville. It should be in your packet with the latest fee schedule. Is there a motion to
I'll
approve?
make a motion to approve.
Motion by Smith,
I'll second.
second by Olson. Any discussion? All right, let's take the roll on the fee schedule.
Absolutely. Alderperson DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderperson Smith.
Aye.
Alderperson Schmidt. Alderperson Levenow.
Aye.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Resolution 5944-2024, approved TAG Center membership rates.
No, you skipped one.
Oh, resolution 5942-2024, adoption of the City of Mayville 2024 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, excuse me. So we had a presentation earlier. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion then.
Motion by Newman,
I'll second that.
second by DeBaker. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now resolution 5944-2024, approved TAG Center membership rates. Should be in your packet. It's a small increase, right, John?
Yes and no, I mean, however you look at it, looking at a 10% rate increase. I can just give you a little quick on that, make it really, I know everybody else sit listen to me talk for 20 minutes here, but.
Please do.
Thank you. Right now, just to give our biggest, I guess, revenue that we bring in every year, our largest revenue source is our one-year membership. So I'm just gonna go off of those, strictly off of those. Right now, a member in the city of Mayville pays $641 a year, but with we get that 20% subsidy from the Bachman Foundation. So you pay $513 for 1 year use. Full facility, full family member out there, which comes up to, which the new rate for the year, 10% would add $52 to it, and would be an increase of $4.33 a month. Right now, if you have it, we're about half and half where people pay it up front or have the monthly withdrawals. Monthly withdrawals for residents, $46, they go up to $51. And then non-residents, a little bit higher there at $732 a year. Theirs would go up approximately $6.16 a month. Theirs will go from $66 to $72 a month for their increase. The total amount that this would increase, if you gotta remember, this is all speculation because, you know, out there are rates out there and the TAG Center itself, it's not guaranteed. I mean, things go slow, things go south with work in Mayville, things go up, it's not a guarantee. If things stay where they are right now and things are doing well out there, if they stay where they are, it's an increase about $39,000 for the year. And let me tell you, when we discussed this in the Parks Board meeting, it was talked through and through all the different, different amounts, different everything. The money is needed very, very much. I mean, out there, it's just everything in your homeowners, everything at your house, everything is going up, same thing out there. Just the utilities alone going up $36,000 just to run that place year to year, and that's your electric, gas, water. They went up that much just to, just day-to-day operation. So.
All right, well, there's the rates. You guys have them. Was there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Now, motion by DeBaker, second by Levenow. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 5943-2024, amending election inspector wages. Can you read that resolution?
I'll just give a little background. With working on the budget for 2025, The current election election workers are $11 an hour, so it's proposed to go for a $2 increase to $13 an hour. That is for the election workers. In addition, Annie is proposing that on election day, if you are the chief election inspector for half a day, be a flat rate of $20. And if the election inspector works a full day, it would be a flat rate of $40 in addition to the $13 an hour. So that is a really good way of your election and your chief election inspectors go through additional training is a good way to compensate for their time and for their education, because when they're attending training, it would only be at the $13 an hour rate instead of a higher rate if you go by per hour for your chief election inspectors. So that's the background history of that.
All right, that's put in this next year's budget, so. Is there a motion? Motion. Motion by Levin.
Second.
Second by Newman. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain.
Take the roll, please. On that.
Sure. Alderperson DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderperson Smith.
Abstain.
Alderperson Schmidt.
Aye.
Alderperson Levin.
Aye.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-1 with one abstention. All right, resolution 5945-2024, appointments to the Park Rec Tag Center Commission. Reappointing, was it 3?
3 of them, yes.
So we're going to reappoint, the name was Kathy
They're
Surdick,
in the resolution.
Dick Stocko, and
Steve Weiner.
Steve Liner.
I'll make a motion to.
All right, Mr. Smith makes a motion, there's a second by Schmidt. Any more discussion? All in favor of saying, all in favor, reappointment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, discuss with possible action, approval of operator's license, they're listed below in mass. Is there a motion to approve all 4?
So moved.
Motion by DeBaker,
Second.
second by Newman. Any discussion? Everything checked out? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Schmidt. Second. Second by DeBaker. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning at 8:55, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Well,